Hello AGDQ, my name is Nerd Squared, and I'll be submitting the Garten of Banban series for AGDQ 2024. And when I say the whole series, I mean the whole series, because kind of like Poppy Playtime, which I ran at last year's AGDQ, it's an episodic horror game that's currently in progress, and there's 4 chapters that are out right now, so those are the 4 games that I'll be running. To give a quick bit of background behind Banban, for those that don't know what it is, it's a series of indie horror games created by 2 brothers, I believe named Ferris and Geppos, I believe is how you pronounce it. Although you might otherwise know them as the Euphoric Brothers. They decided to make these games pretty much because there's a lot of mascot horror games coming out in the past decade, like Poppy Playtime that I just mentioned, that are pretty popular, and they've seen virality on the internet. You might have seen some YouTube videos of people playing these games, even. So, given that, they decided, you know what, let's give it a crack at making a horror game. It's not great. In fact, I'll be submitting this for the awful block, because as you'll see throughout all 4 games, Banban is very much one of those it's so bad it's good kind of games, and it kind of just gets more and more unhinged as the games progress. You'll see what I mean. A couple quick things to go over. As I said, this is going to be a multi-game run. There is a 5th game, as well as a 6th one that's currently being released. Those won't be included as part of this submission. Like I said at the start, it'll just be the first 4 chapters. And second thing, I'm actually going to force quit out of the game. In fact, you can now see my desktop. That's for good reason. I didn't just do that out of boredom. I did that, force quitting out of the game, that is, because that's actually one of our main bits of speed tech for all 4 of the Banban games. Because the force quitting, like that force quit I just did, is essentially our form of checkpoint reloading. So we do that all throughout the run to save little bits of time here and there for all the games. I'm also should point out that I'm wearing this Angry Birds hoodie. So there's a character in this game, this pink bird right here, named Opila. There's kind of a running meme in the Banban community surrounding this bird, to the point where you may have seen the hashtag BirdUp explode on social media, as an example. And so one potential incentive we could do is for me to wear a bird costume. Right, for this mission though, I'm just using this Angry Birds hoodie as a stand-in for that. We can go ahead and get started. The actual plot of these games, by the way, is essentially we are a parent. Our kid is missing in this kindergarten facility. I guess it's sort of a school. And we're trying to go look for our kid. That's the long and short of what Banban is about. Alright, so time starts as soon as I do my first movement input. We got quite a few games to go through, so we'll go ahead and get started. In 3, 2, 1, go! So right away, I'm going to pick up that key card and go in here, because we're going to pick up our drone. This is our main tool for interacting with the environment in all of the Banban games, but it's kind of dead right now, so we need to get a couple of batteries to power it. We'll do just that. We'll do our quick force quit. First force quit there. There we go. That just makes it so that when I load back in here, I'm turned around. So I can actually go right over here and not to physically turn the camera. And here you can see the use of the drone in action. There will be lots of puzzles throughout all 4 of the games where we have to hit these buttons with the drone. If you've played something like Poppy Playtime, just to bring that game back again, it's like the grab pack in those games, or in that game. In fact, I'm going to set up a bit of a precise shot here with the drone. You're normally not supposed to be able to break glass with it unless you break it from the other side. But if you precisely position the cursor next to that pane of glass, and then call the drone to that spot, it'll break the glass by just grazing it on the side. And here I'm collecting a bunch of eggs. We have to feed a bunch of, I guess it's plastic Easter eggs to a statue of Opila in the corner of the room. I have to grab 6 of those, and just got all of them. By doing this, we've got a key card to activate a hammer to break down those boards over there. Got a great sound effect going here for putting the eggs in. So as soon as we put that last egg in, I do another force quit. This speeds up the animation of the key card coming out of Opila's mouth right there. So I'll go here and grab that. I'm also going to call the drone. A big thing with all the games, especially when you're doing these like drone puzzles, is optimizing when you call the drone and when you use the drone. Because when you call the drone, and after you call it at a location, there's a bit of a cooldown before you can use or call it again. So you have to manage that pretty well to do all the games cleanly. Especially when you're doing lengthy sections of puzzles. We just got the hammer there, so we'll break down these boards, and we'll go into this secret area, which it turns out is a ball pit, but events that aren't revealed yet in the series cause this ball pit to collapse. We need a key card to get to the end of the game. That's in this room. But we have to do a quick puzzle before we can do that. And after I do, the puzzle, by the way, is pretty simple. It's basically color association with these different mascots. But once I do the puzzle, I'm going to try to do a trick that's pretty difficult because it's frame perfect. What I'm basically going to do is, after I finish this puzzle, so like I said, it's just simple color association, I'm going to try to grab the key card and then force quit out of the game at the same time. Okay, that looked okay, but it's hard to tell because it is frame perfect. It's pretty much a one-frame trick. So you have a very narrow window to get that. Ah, I didn't get it. That's fine. We have a pretty quick backup for it, which is just jumping on this swing and going back over here to avoid a chase with Opila over there. What would have happened if I got the trick is I would have wrong warped basically to the other side here. Also, bye Opila. I would have wrong warped to the other side there and not have to take the cart to get back over. Yeah, we have that orange key card. Now we can go into this room. Because our whole goal with this first chapter is to get into an elevator to get further down in the facility. We have a quick drone puzzle here. Call the drone over, hit that button under the desk, and then hit this button on the wall. That's what I was talking about with really managing the drone well. As you saw there, I shot the drone in advance, and then I hit the two buttons in this room while the drone was going over to hit the button. So I was able to hit this button as soon as the drone hit the switch, I guess, as soon as the drone hit that button. And that's really it. That's it with Banban 1. Already, we're done with our first game. Banban 1 is pretty short. There we go, that's the end of Banban 1. Banban 1 is pretty short, but as the games go along, they just get progressively longer and longer. Again, if you've been around the internet surrounding, the game's origins back in early 2013, or early 2013, I meant early this year, you might have seen some memes of people speedrunning through the game and try to beat it under 2 hours and refund it. Banban 2 is where that originates, because the games from here start adding a lot of padding to artificially lengthen the game. Alright, we're off to Banban 2. We skipped the cutscene by force quitting. There's a monster named Jumbo Josh that causes our elevator to crash. Unfortunately, though, it also causes our antenna that we use to pilot the drone to break. We have to find a replacement, but we have to go to this facility a bit more before we can do that. So we have to call this bridge out so we can go to the different sectors. Banban 2 and onwards starts introducing you to the concept of going to different areas to do certain tasks. In fact, I think all of the games do that pretty much. So we'll be going to a few different areas. First, start with, we'll be going to the maintenance area to get a keycard to grab a note in a room that's hidden to us at the moment. And now starts a bit of a cutscene. This is where you get to hear the great voice acting that these games have. It gets better as the series goes on, especially in Banban 4. where they actually hire professional voice actors for it, which is pretty cool.
Listen, if you can
But
hear
you
me
get to hear the
okay,
janky voice
we're
acting
heading
for
for
now.
Mira.
Little fun fact, I think the person who's voicing that character over the intercom is actually one of the Euphoric Brothers. Not sure who, but I know it's one of the
Thank
brothers, for
God.
sure.
I'm so glad you're here. I thought this was the end.
He voices
I
the
was on the
namesake
run,
character of this game,
near the
actually,
end. The
Banban.
door closed behind
Or
me.
or as we would later learn in Banban 4, he's actually
Use
named
the light
Uthman.
purple key card to
We'll
open
be
it.
seeing him a
Don't
few
panic.
times throughout
I know why you're
2
here.
and 3.
I can help you, but you
There is
won't
an
get
instance
the
you would see him
answers.
in 4 as well,
You're
but
actually only maintenance
we skipped
worker
that
without the
for
purple key card.
reasons. You'll
That's where
see.
you
But
came through.
the other thing, so I mentioned at the start
The door
with
is no longer
how
locked,
these games are
and no one
progressively more and more
but you
absurd.
have control over the break room door.
They also get more and more broken
See if you can find any
to the
clues.
point where Banban 4 is a massive skip. It saves around 80% of the game, if not 99%. You'll see what I mean when we get there. So you have a quick button puzzle. Kind of similar to the button I did partway through Banban 1. That's color association, going by the shades between red and blue, or blue and red. I know the pattern though, so we can just go ahead and get the buttons real quick. Grab that key card. It's important actually that I do that puzzle fast, because if I don't do the puzzle before that intermission or speech comes on over the intercom from Banban, I'm unable to grab the key card, and that would waste probably around 20 seconds. It's important that I grab that fast, which I did. And speaking of concepts that come up in all of the games, we're going to do our first bit of precision droning, as I guess I'll call it. So like I said, we do a lot of puzzles with, hitting buttons with the drone. And we have and you can see there's these 3 buttons we have to hit. There's a setup where if I get it right, I can hit these buttons in just 3 calls of the drone, if not less. It's pretty precise, so hopefully I get it. Alright, we got that button. Last one can be kind of tricky because it's dang near pixel perfect. Did not hit the glass. Alright, we got it. Cool. And it's not over yet, though, because we have to run all the way back the way we just came. And you can't see it right now, but there's a monster chasing us named Nab Nab, who's basically this blue spider that runs on the ceiling. If you cross paths with him, he instantly kills you. And what's annoying about it is even if you make one tiny misstep, he can get you, even if it's just like, oh, you accidentally grazed a corner. So it doesn't look like it, because I'm just running through here, but that part can actually be kind of stressful. But we got through it no problem. And we had good droning earlier, which is pretty nice. That one part where you pilot the drone to get that blue key card can actually lose you a lot of time if it goes awry, but thankfully it didn't. I did another forward squid there. That's a bit of a save warp to get up the stairs a bit quicker. Grab this note, and it turns out to be a fake. Guess who walked in the room?
Three birds with one
Yep,
stone.
the awkward
I'm
voice
the
acting
perfect
Banban.
mascot. I get the perfect specimen, and I don't have to deal with a thing down there. And it's all thanks to you.
Also,
Oh,
I know this is going to sound
what
weird,
hit you that hard?
but keep in mind the word
Maybe I should.
pancreas, because
I
that's going
gotta
to
leave. I
appear
should take
in
care of
Banban
myself.
3 in some
Get
really
ready
weird
for
plot
some
point.
butt surgery.
I know that seems random to bring up right now, but just keep that in mind for later. Like I said, these games just get more and more absurd. And when I say that, I mean it. Yeah, Banban there knocked us out. Now we get picked here, straight into another drone puzzle. And similar to Banban 1, with that one trick where I shot the drone precisely at the glass, I'm going to do a similar thing here to avoid a long puzzle with the drone. I have a little bit of a lineup for it to try to make it a little easier. That should hit. Yep, there we go. That broke the glass. I'm going to aim it at the vending machine next, so that hits the button. There we go. I'm going to hit that button there after, or hit that switch after activating the button. This makes an elevator come down so I can go to the upper floors of this facility. And I like to point this out whenever I do this section, but you see these lights hanging from the ceiling? This one light right here is hanging from the ceiling at a slight angle, so it's not on the ceiling fully. Immersion broken. But we'll press on. So I jumped on the outside of the elevator as it's coming down. That way I can hit the button a little early. And that's a pretty neat effect of the doors opening twice. You might have been able to hear it a little. And so it just clips through the wall as we go up to the upper floors. Once we get to the upper floors here, you have to do a fairly lengthy puzzle, not involving the drone, actually, but actually involving a syringe. So little thing, it's going to be kind of weird bringing this up suddenly, but basically the employees in this facility, as I understand it with the lore, they're being experimented on and turned into the monsters that you've seen throughout the games so far, like that Jumbo Josh person we came across at the beginning of this chapter, which is that green monster, by the way. So we have to use the syringe and basically take blood samples from these monsters in order to create something called a Guvanium mixture. Guvanium is what causes these people in this facility to turn into these monsters, like this big guy right here. But he's trying to guard us from going down that hallway, so let's shoot him with the drone. So he covers his eye because he got injured from the drone hit, and we can take a sample from there. We got all the samples on this floor, so we can go ahead and put in this machine. By filling this little tube up, it'll give us a firecracker that we can use to activate a cannon. And by shooting the firecracker out of that cannon, it'll make the green monster that we just saw go, and it'll move away so we can actually go into this room that's off to the side. I also did, yep, just like that. I also did a trick when I got the first blood sample, where I jumped and grabbed and activated the door from the other side. It saves a few seconds. There is a force quit you can do here once you activate the door to save a few seconds, but by doing that you have to do a much harder jump to get across this first gap. So I'd rather not have to deal with that. As you can see there, I did a little jump to that bridge to get to the other side. Or that avoids having to wait and call the bridge over to get to the other side here. And we have a bit of a drone puzzle here. We have 4 buttons in the 4 corners of the room. There is a bit of a faster setup for this, but I'm not entirely used to it, so I'm just going to do my usual setup for this, which is bring the drone to the middle. Aim the drone here so that it's within the range of these 2 buttons on each side, and hit the 2 buttons in sequence. Now once we hit the buttons, switch will activate right here. We'll activate that switch, do another force quit. It doesn't look like much doing all that, but it actually avoids a sequence where you have to run down a really long hallway to do a button puzzle at the end of this hallway. Did I mention that these games love button puzzles? We've seen a lot of those. Once we do this particular button puzzle, though, I'll be doing a glitch that you'll see a little bit in this game and definitely a lot in Banban 4 later on. Okay, cool. So by pausing there as the drone is hitting the button, I'm able to use it in this little area. Normally you're not supposed to be able to use the drone in this sequence. So that way we can hit this button and leave the section early. This avoids a really long minigame where you basically have to answer a set of trivia questions involving Bambolina, who we haven't really seen much of, but she's basically this white-skinned version of Banban. We've seen her a few times in this and Banban 3. And that leads into another skip right away. You'd have to bring these little Opila chicks, put them in a nest. Okay. I kind of messed that up because I was tripping over myself trying to explain things. But right after that little section in the classroom with Bambolina, you'd have to do a puzzle where you bring these Opila chicks that you just saw, put them in a nest right over there. But you can actually, as soon as Opila comes in the room here, just leave the room. You have to time it pretty precisely, though, otherwise, as you saw, you get yoinked by him. There we go. And I have to stop here for a moment, because now we're in this section with this snail, which is basically a deadly game of red light, green light. As long as the snail moves, we have to stay still. Otherwise, we'll get jump scared and have to do this section again. With this strat, the way we do it now, we can actually just go all the way over here before the snail even gets a chance to move. You can technically go inside of here, or you probably can go inside of this room, which is where we're trying to go next, before the snail gets a chance to move again, but it's pretty tight. As far as I know, no one's been able to do it quite yet. Alright, so we got a chance to move there, so we'll go in here. Also, get used to that chase music, because it's going to play for a little while. The reason that chase music happened is because when we were doing Opila Skip, we started getting chased by that bird. But since we never finished the chase, the music doesn't stop. So this little constant bass chase music, it's going to play for the next little bit, for probably the next few minutes or so. But for the actual marathon run, we can just force quit as soon as we get in this room, and that gets rid of the chase music. So I went around here and grabbed these shells, because you have to grab another keycard. It's a running theme with these games, going to grab keycards. In order to be able to do the biggest RNG section in probably all three of the games. Or all four of the games, I should say. For speedruns, anyway. Which is the cannon minigame. So you'll see these 4 targets around the room, as well as 2 below the deck. Whichever cannon the target aims at, whichever target, I have to hit the corresponding, or whichever target lights up, like that one on the left, I have to activate the corresponding cannon to shoot a firecracker at it. In that case, it got the target on the left, right here, so I'd shoot this target on the right. There we go. Basically, the way we really optimize this is just by reacting to which target is lit up, and then shooting from the corresponding cannon as soon as possible. And the reason it's so RNG heavy is obviously which cannon or which target you get in each round. There's 4 rounds each from here. Is kind of luck dependent. And if you get a below deck cannon, which happens in the 3rd round of this game, you have to go back down and you have to go down and activate it, and that wastes time. Also, once each match ends in each round, I go and pick up a firecracker, so I can immediately use the cannon as soon as I see which target is activated. And it's actually used for a secret in this game if you run 100%, where you have to use in the section where I was trying to kill that green monster that was blocking the way, you can actually get a keycard there to go to a secret room to get a few extra notes. Okay, good. So, really good RNG in this section would be to get no cannons below the deck at all. But getting that is pretty rare. You usually get at least 1 in any given run, with average luck, and we just got 1 there. So you can see this target is lit up below deck, so I have to activate that cannon. It's below deck again. This is kind of bad luck. The worst luck I've ever had is I had 3 or 4 below deck cannons in this last round, which is ultra slow. because you waste about 20 seconds having that happen. And with how optimized these games are at the moment, you really can't afford to have that happen in a real run. That would just be a straight up reset. I believe that's the last cannon. There might be one more. Nope, that was the last one. Alright, so once you do 3 rounds of the cannon game, you get to grab this blue key card. And then activate the switch. That opens a door at the end of this hallway that we were just in earlier for most of the game. And this last room, I like to call this Mirror's Edge in my splits, because it's basically one big parkour section. And the thing that makes it annoying is that Banban, with Banban, all 4 of the games, the physics, you don't really get much air control. So if you mess up a jump, you're just kind of committed to it. Also, I'm going to go ahead and force quit there. You don't actually have to, because it doesn't save any time, but I'm just doing that for the sake of your ears, so you don't have to hear the chase music anymore. Oh, another thing, while we're here, so I did show earlier about how, when you force quit to the desktop for checkpoint reloading in this, if showing the desktop is a concern, you can either just do a black screen, or just like put a flat image behind the game. Probably isn't too much of an issue, but, there is options if that is a concern. Yeah, like I was saying, it's one big parkour section. You can see all these circle and square platforms I'm jumping on. It's not too difficult once you get used to it, but it does still spook me whenever I get close to falling off a platform. Also, why... Just looking at this, it just looks really dangerous, so... You might be wondering, why is this in a place meant for kids? Don't worry about it. The design of this game, all 4 of the games, don't really make a whole lot of sense, kind of going with what I said earlier about these games getting more and more absurd and weird. So they just kind of put that in there as like a bit of a platforming section. The bros. And so as soon as that door closes, I'm going to do another force quit. That avoids a cutscene involving Jumbo Josh, again, the green monster from earlier, and Bambolina. In fact, we'll actually be doing a chase sequence with them at the end here. It's not too difficult to do because the path is set. There's no randomized elements to it or anything. But the game does try to spook you here in this last chase. Because, like, occasionally Jumbo Josh will come out and try to punch at you to try to distract you, like he did just there and right here. But other than that, it's the same path every time. Just be running through here. For the actual marathon runs, so probably this and the cannon game from earlier would probably be a good point for reading out donations or giving any plugs. Alright, so we're done with the chase. You activate that button, which will cause Jumbo Josh to punch Bambolina through that hole in the ceiling. There we go. By doing that, we get our white key card, so we can go through here to another elevator, because every Banban game ends with an elevator. Here we go. That's the end of Banban 2. So I mentioned how the games get progressively more and more broken, because Banban 1 was pretty straightforward. We had some shenanigans with the frame perfect wrong warp that I attempted. Banban 2, we had some like light platforming skips. And we had that big sequence break with Opila midway through. But Banban 3 is where it takes it up a notch. And right away we have a bit of downtime for Banban 3. Because again, we have to grab a couple of batteries to power our drone. But this second battery, which is over there on that kiosk, does not activate, or is not able to be picked up until this
I don't know
dialogue from
exactly
Banban
where
is
they're being
done.
put ahead,
So while we wait, we
but the
can
reason that I believe
customize our drone
is
here.
because
Another donation
we'll
incentive,
see for whatever reason
or a
I
donation
decided
incentive
to apply
we
local
could do for
filters.
this is to pick a color for the
I
drone.
forced myself
It
to
has a
be
full
more
RGB
creative.
spectrum and everything, so we can do
I have forced
any
myself
color that the donators choose. In this case, though, I'll go
to
ahead
know
with
that there's
pink.
a danger
And
here.
also make it so that our
We are
color
currently on a
and
mission
drone are the
to
same
make
color,
practice
or
before every
drone and
mission.
remote, there we go, are the same color.
Staying flawless
So I'll go ahead and do that. We can
is
also do that for the incentive as well.
on timeline.
So yeah,
So
there's a second battery, but we
right
can't
now,
pick it up until this
I'm
dialogue
just
from
here.
Banban is done.
I don't know exactly where they're being kept, but I know someone who does. Head to the aquatic
So, an
center.
interesting thing about
That's where
Banban
everything
actually is
happens.
that if you've looked at the cover art for these games, you'll notice like a character appearing on the game's banner. Kind of like how with Five Nights at Freddy's or even Poppy Playtime, there's also a monster from the game on the banner. And each of the character on those games' banners are essentially the main baddie we'll be dealing with.
It just ate me the
Like in
sight.
Banban 1, if you look at the banner, there's Jumbo Josh. Of course, we had an encounter with him at the end of that chapter. Banban 2, we dealt with Banban. With Banban 3, there's this orange squid or octopus, I guess, named Stinger Flynn. And that's what we'll be dealing with in this chapter. We're trying to get to him over in the aquatic sector. We need to grab another keycard to get in his room first. So I'll be picking up some crayons to be able to grab a keycard here. Uh, the purpose of this room is you need to pick up all the crayons so that this little cleaning machine right there doesn't see that the crayons are there. So the cleaning machine, which by the way is spelled with a K, once the cleaning machine goes through here and it sees that the crayons aren't on the floor, no anomalies as it says, uh, this machinery here will basically say, okay, you're good, and we get our trusty key card. Oh, and also with the drone color, um, what? Okay, I'm surprised. Which one did I miss? Oh, is this one over here? Dang it. Alright, so unfortunately we messed that up, so we have to do another run of the cleaner. I'll go ahead and stay on the table so I'm out of the cleaner's way. Yeah, once this cleaner goes through, we get our key card. Unfortunately, I missed a crayon, so we have to wait for the cleaner to go through again. And when I say it's spelled with a K, I'm not lying, because it literally says it on this billboard right here. Guess it's the game's way of being quirky. I meant to mention something earlier, but I lost my train of thought. That's fine. I'll probably remember it later. Oh, there we go. That was going to take a bit longer to go through, so I started running away. So I've got our key card there, and now we can go to, or use the tram. I mentioned earlier in Banban 2 about going between different areas. In Banban 3, and especially 4, is where it drives that home. But before we can actually use the tram, we have to get that blue key card, or pink key card rather, to be able to use it. Oh yeah, I remember what I was going to say. So with the drone color incentive that I mentioned earlier, you can also change the drone color in Banban 2. So we can do the incentive there as well. We're not going to do it for Banban 1 because drone color didn't exist in that game. And with Banban 4, um, there's no real way to do it because of the amount of stuff that we skip in that speedrun. Another precision drone shot. I aim the drone there and then aim the drone at that little corner in the room. That way you don't have to do a long drone puzzle to break open the glass. You can do it in just about 2 moves there. And now we get an orange key card to enter this room. This is the room where Stinger Flynn is held. And you might be noticing throughout all the games that I'm just bunny hopping, just jumping up and down repeatedly. This doesn't actually save any real time. I just like to do it to pass the time when I'm doing long movement sections where I go in a straight line. So yeah, this is Stinger Flynn. You might be noticing with a lot of these characters that there's veins on the skin. That's pretty much because these monsters, when the employees in this facility were turned into them, they're made in clay likenesses. Also, if you pay close attention to Stinger Flynn's legs, the textures on some of them are a little off. And we won't see it in Banban 4, but it's really obvious there in a cutscene with him. So we'll be doing another force quit once he says leave this place. Once he gets to that line of dialogue, we'll do a force quit. But you have to listen for it. It's a little bit of an audio cue and also visual cue with the subtitles. There we go. Force quit out as soon as he says leave. And it does not look like much, probably. But by doing that one force quit, we skip just about 10 minutes of gameplay. Because it skips a hallucination section. Which, yes, when we meet Stinger Flynn, he pretty much puts us to sleep, and we play as him for a little bit. Sounds weird? Yeah, it is. Believe me. We skip that section where we play as him, and also, it's pretty good that we get to skip that section, because, if you remember the canon minigame from Banban 2 that we did earlier, we'd have to do that again as Stinger Flynn. But it's a little better for Stinger Flynn version of it, because he has this power where he can shoot electric signals out of his tentacles, like an electric zapping beam, I guess you could call it. And electricity, there we go. We'll just go with that. He can shoot electricity out of his tentacles to hit the targets instead of having to use the cannons, which is pretty neat, but it is a cannon minigame, so it still takes a while. Because you still have to do the whole 3-round stick that Banban 2 has you do. So it does take a while. So now I'll be doing a bit of a leapfrog minigame. You have to leap on the 3 dots that appear on the ground. And it's actually not too difficult to do because the window for it is pretty generous. And we have to do this minigame 2 rounds of it. We just did the first round in order to get another key card. Again, running theme with these games. To be able to get to the, I believe it's called the medicinal sector. Because similar to what Banban was alluding to in Banban 2 with surgery, we have to do a minigame involving that there in the medicinal sector. Or medical sector, actually, I believe it's called. And the surgery minigame, it's one of the hardest parts of the run, because it's basically one big color matching game. And there's a trick, or a glitch of sorts, that we can do to speed up that minigame significantly, like easily shave at least a minute off of it. And it also makes it a lot easier. Because normally... Oh wait, did I just go left? I meant to go up. Whoops. Also loses me a bit of time, but it gives me more time to explain things. So with the surgery minigame, like I said, it's color matching. And it would normally be a lot more difficult. But there's a way to make it... basically trivialize it, as long as we don't mess up. And what we basically do is... so what we have to do in the minigame, once we start it, is it shows you a color on this little television screen, and you have to match the color, take the serum that the machinery in the room creates, involving that Guvanium stuff I mentioned earlier. You inject that into one of the mascots, who in this case is going to be named Nabnalina, in order to essentially bring her to life. There we go, now we're going the right way. You have to inject the mixture into her with the correct colors in order to essentially bring her to life. Basically, we're basically going to do a Frankenstein's monster kind of thing in a second. But if you do the pattern wrong, Nabnalina jump scares you. And there's a chance where, I guess if you're too slow, or if you accidentally do the wrong thing, the glitch will fail, and you won't necessarily fail the minigame, it's just pretty easy to fail the minigame once you mess the trick up. So what I'll basically be doing in the surgery minigame here is I'll be going very quickly between matching the color, whichever one it is random, between a few different ones. Uh, Going to Napnalina right here, injecting her with the Givanium, and then really quickly going back to the buttons to match whatever color sequence is on the board. I'll just be doing that over and over until the surgery minigame ends,
Or were the
hopefully.
color disappear?
It's pretty hard to
Of
do,
course,
though, because you have to be really quick to do it, otherwise the board over there will
we
change
need a
color.
more permanent solution. Nabnali
So another force quit there, once Banban says starts saying Nabnalina, that's when the autosave happens. Uh, and by reloading there, we skip all of Banban's dialogue. Alright, so I'll set Nabnalina up on the gurney, grab a syringe, and let's start. Oh, we got red, which is a pretty good pattern. If you get monocolors like red, green, or blue, that's really good, because you can just hit the two buttons really quickly. Just like that. It's pretty easy to remember. When it starts getting really complicated is when it does mixed color patterns on the board. Like light blue or purple. You have to memorize which colors combine into the mixed colors. And of course, if you mess up, then you pretty much fail the surgery. I think one more, we got it though. Yep, there we go. So we just got the surgery minigame. Got it first try as well, which is pretty good. Uh, in my multi-game runs, like what I'm submitting here, I'm notorious for failing that particular trick every single multi-game run I do, whether it's Trilogy, or Banban 4 came out, or quadrilogy runs, as I do now with all four. By the way, I'll be submitting this with the category of quadrilogy any percent. No quadrilogy, 4 games. I was originally going to submit just the trilogy, but then a month or so ago, the 4th game came out. Turned out to have a massive skip, which made it good for runs, and then I wound up including that into my multi-game runs of Banban as well. And I chose the multi-game runs as my main format for running Banban, because the games by themselves are not really all that interesting and are pretty short. So I figured a multi-game run like this, that would be the best format for this series. There we go. We did the surgery to get a little audio tape there. Because now we've brought Nab and Lena to life through that minigame. Because Nab needs a mate, as you do. We need to actually summon Nab to come out of his little containment room there. And I just like the sequence where Nab and Nabnalina, I guess, talk to each other. Because you can see them just, like, crawl awkwardly on the ceiling. You can even see that their legs are clipped partially through the ceiling. Pretty weird.
at last. He's no longer miserable.
Speaking of
I'm
weird,
surprised they built
um,
the original
we
system
have a
so
pretty
beautifully so
bizarre
that
cutscene
it
coming
couldn't
up.
shift.
And this is what I was talking about earlier with the games just getting more and more bizarre. Absurd. Because we've had some fever dream stuff, I guess I'll say, with like all these monsters coming after us and the game almost being like a comedy horror, which pretty much is comedy horror at this point. But this is where the game really delves hard into the comedy horror uh, side of the series. Because like the first 2 games or so were kind of made with the intent of being like a serious game. But Banban 3 is where the Euphoric Brothers, Ferris and Geppo, pretty much realized that the entire series was one giant meme. And so they delved all into the silly factor with this next cutscene. Also, little fun fact. So the game, in addition to in, in addition to being notorious for all of the weird stuff you've seen so far, it's also one particular point people have brought up is the amount of polygons that are in all the models in this game. With the drone remote that I'm holding in particular, there's so many polygons on the model that has more polygons than the entirety of Resident Evil 1 on the PS1. That is not a joke. You can actually look up videos that talk about it. A little interesting fun facts. Also, we're in a car now. Stinger Flynn basically put us in a dream sequence. So that's why we're in this car. That's like how Banban does a little Skyrim reference there. It's pretty cool. Also, Dabnab is just sculling behind the car. We'll just leave him be. Shout out to Opila. That's the only thing he says in this entire game, by the way. Just his jump scare sound. So it's just really funny seeing it happen as his only response.
Locate the being who asked for your opinion.
Can you at least put some music on since we're gonna be out here for a while?
Yeah, well, yeah, this cutscene is basically waiting in the car for a little bit. We'll put some music on here. So we get some pretty good tunes. Little fun fact about this song, actually.
That's
By the way, in case there's any concern about copyright, this is not a copyrighted song. What's interesting about this song is that the Euphoric Brothers actually collaborated with a creator on YouTube named by, or that goes by Rocket Music, to create this song specifically for this game, which is a really cool detail. And you'll even see with Banban 4, they got some professional voice actors to voice some of these mascots, like Aaron Nicole Lundquist is one I remember.
Stop vocalizing for just 1 second.
And the voice acting in Banban 4 is like a big step up from the first three, for sure. You'll see that when we get there. Because there's actually a mascot we haven't seen yet named Queen Bouncelia, who's a purple kangaroo. And there's also a character, a jester, and also a sheriff that's also a frog named Toadster. We'll be seeing him later. Yeah, unfortunately we crashed with the cactus that spontaneously spawned in the middle of the desert. And now we're playing as Stinger Flynn. We avoided the first section with him where we would have to play the cannon minigame. Up here we have to do this. There's no way to avoid it. And this one is basically shoot the targets. Like, you know, those buttons we come across before, we have to shoot some of those as Stinger Flynn. That's what I was talking about with him being able to shoot electricity. It is on a bit of a cooldown, but it's pretty short. So you can hit these buttons pretty quick. And we would have to do a second round of this, but there's a skip we can do to avoid it. The second round of this minigame is pretty funny, though, so a potential donation, or potential thing we could do to, like, mess around is to show off the second round of the button minigame. Because in the second round of the button minigame, what happens is the buttons start moving in a circle, and it gets to a point where the buttons just move, like, the speed of sound. It's ridiculous. So we're done with that section with Stinger Flynn. I quit out there as soon as the subtitle from Bambolina appears. And now we have probably the hardest skip in this game, besides the surgery trick. The reason it's so hard is we have to do this entire section while we're on a 1 minute or so time limit. So what we would have to do is place these orange blocks for one extended puzzle. But we can actually go into this final room and do a bit of trickery with this one orange block that we just grabbed. This is the last room of the puzzle. You have to hit these 4 buttons on the wall. Get a key card that's in there. But I'm going to do a... Okay, got it. So what I did there is I backed up to the very edge of the block, the green block, and then placed an orange block while I was still on it. And it's a very precise window. It's not quite pixel perfect, but might as well be, because it's pretty tight. That allows me to, if I time my jump right, jump on the block even after I place the orange block while I'm technically still on top of it. So that avoids a pretty lengthy puzzle where you have to do several rounds of basically playing statues. Where you'd have to wait for where Jumbo Josh comes in. You have to stay still and make sure the room's in the state it was in previously, otherwise he jump scares you. It's a mix of red light, green light, kind of like what we did with the snail earlier in Banban 2, and also a memory puzzle, because you have to memorize where things were in the room and then put them back in the exact place they were, otherwise Jumbo Josh gets you. we're out of there now. We'll be going up to, I believe it's the progressive sector. Yeah. And you might notice some directions in the splits. That's just denoting where I need to go in the tram once I'm done with a particular section. Right now, for instance, we're trying to go to the progressive sector. And I have to go up from where I just was, the main sector, kind of, in order to get to the progressive sector. You also might notice there's the split name is Bamba Hydra. If you didn't think Banban had boss fights, surprise, surprise, we're about to do one. But we have to do a quick math puzzle beforehand. I already know the answers here, so we'll just go ahead and input them real quick. So it's 4, 1, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 5, 3. That's the solution. And I mentioned earlier about how Banban, all of the games, really like buttons. This game apparently really likes doors, because you have to go through a long series of doors to actually get to the boss fight coming up. There's a trick you can do in the fight with this enemy that I call the... It's not the actual name, but I like to call it the Bamba Hydra. There's a trick you can do in this boss fight with the Bamba Hydra, or I guess just the Hydra, where you can actually go over there and grab those party hats early. And then once the boss fight is done, do another force quit to save all that running that I just did down that long hallway. But it's pretty difficult because you'll see this boss do a few attacks, like slapping his tongue like he did there, or the smaller head here shooting out a bubble. And it's pretty hard to see when he's going to do the attack, when you're that up close to him on the other side. So for marathon safety, both in the actual marathon run and in the submission, I'm going to opt to not do that. Just kind of do this boss fight the standard way. Yeah, the strat I do, because it is a bit of RNG which button activates to get these firecrackers. I just stand on the right side here, and whichever button activates, I go over to where it is. In that case, it's all the way on the other side there, which is a bit of bad luck, but it's all good. Just have to do a quick run to get over there. Also, if that tongue or the bubble hits me, it's instant death, so I have to be very careful here. Okay, good. He veered up to do that bubble attack as I was running over here, so I was a little worried he was going to hit me, but thankfully he didn't. There he goes, that's our second firecracker. Have to run over here and put it in the guy's mouth. I'm jumping over here before I put the firecracker in his tongue. Because that attack where he slams his tongue on the ground is a pretty wide range. So I have to be on the side platform, or otherwise he's going to yoink me. Oh, the button's it's over there again, so I have to run over. So I'm waiting. I do with the bubble attack. I'm doing this thing where I kind of juke to the side while jumping, and I jump to make sure that it doesn't like ricochet off the ground and hit me. And when I'm dodging these attacks, I'm looking at the animation of the Hydra's heads, either one, to tell when they're about to, in this case, slam the tongue down, or shoot the bubble. That way I know, okay, they're about to actually get the attack off, and that's when I know to actually start moving to dodge the attack. Yeah, pretty simple fight. You just shoot a few firecrackers, or put a few firecrackers on his tongue, and that causes him to go, "Ugh!" And then he falls into the abyss. But now we're done with the fight. We can grab those 2 party hats. That isn't just like a 100% collectible kind of thing, or like a bonus collectible. It's actually necessary for story progression. Quick split there. It's actually necessary for story progression, because at the end here, we have to babysit this, guess it's a cart or something? And we have to push it along to spook that Opila chick, so we can actually use it for a puzzle, essentially. Also, also enjoy this section where you get to hear the cart talking a whole bunch. It cycles through one of 3 different catchphrases, and they're pretty funny to listen to. Yeah, remember what I said about the pancreas earlier? That's what I meant. Like I said, it's gonna come back full force in Banban 3. It does come up a little bit in Banban 1 and 2, but we avoid ever seeing mentions of pancreases in the speedrun for both. I have to pick up the Opila chicks to bait this light blue bird to come into the room. Put the Opila chick on the adult-sized Opila. Then activate this switch, which will cause Stinger Flynn to come up. As soon as the subtitle appears there, when he says okay, we do another force quit that avoids some dialogue with him. And you might notice in the splits that I call this section Bird Up, because we'll basically be doing a Kentucky Derby style bird race at the end of the game. It's really bizarre. The way this works, basically, is you see the doors are color-coded. If the door is pink, Opila has to get to the door first. But if the door is colored light blue or aqua, I have to get to the door first. And if the colors don't match, then you fail the minigame, or you fail the race. We're racing to get away from Banban there, who's kind of possessed right now, I guess. And while this section is pretty easy, I have to make sure that I don't fail it, because if you do, it's a huge time loss, like at least a couple minutes, depending on where you fail. I mean, I have a pretty generous estimate, so I'd probably be able to deal with dying here, but still would be preferred not to, of course. And this section is actually so long. I believe it's actually 15 rooms of this that we have to do, just about, if not more. Pretty sure I'm wrong, but I feel like 15 or 16 is pretty close. And also, as we go along, the length between checkpoints here gets shorter and shorter, so you have to manage your acceleration and deceleration, as well as your distance between you and Opila, a bit tighter. Alright, there we go. So I believe there's a couple more doors left. Alright, cool, that's the last door. So we're done with the little bird race there. Now we're gonna get into a confrontation with Banban, who's kind of possessed right now, as I said. Also, remember what I said about pancreases? Like I said, it comes back in Banban 3. Seems like a really random thing for these monsters to be obsessed with, but yeah. It doesn't really come up all that much in the games. Just like once in Banban 1, and then right here at the end of Banban 3. But especially with the skips we have now in Banban 4, it doesn't really ever come up. Yeah, we're about to witness or we are witnessing the fight of the ages here, because Jumbo Josh and Banban just got into a bit of a brawl. But Stinger Flynn here is going to try to break it up. As we can see, it doesn't really go too well. Uh-oh. Alright, what you gonna do about that, Opila? I like Opila there, he just jumps off, he like kamikazed it. Rest in peace, Opila, although he does come back in Banban 4. Also, there's a little Opila chick. He's gonna follow us into Banban 4. And Banban 4 is where things just go off the walls in terms of glitchiness. Because like I said, these games get progressively more and more broken. I mentioned briefly earlier about how Banban 4 has a huge skip that avoids 90% of the game. That's true, but the tricks in this game are also a little more soft lock heavy, so I do have backup saves ready in case I fail some of these skips. Alright, cool. So we'll grab our little OP the Chick friends, and we're already in a chase sequence with that Hydra monster we saw earlier. Also, for some reason, the chase music in this section in particular is really dang loud, so I apologize to anyone watching this with headphones. But navigating through here is pretty much the same, or pretty much very easy. Because it's like with the chase sequence at the end of Banban 2, it's the same path every time. So, run through here. So Banban 4 introduces a new mechanic with puzzles where I stand on these pressure plates to activate doors. We'll activate these pressure plates to activate this button. And similar to the skip Banban 2 with the drone, you can do a couple of pauses there. This starts a lengthy sequence of pauses I have to do to get the skip to work. So I did a couple of pauses really quickly there when the drone was about to hit the button. And then that makes it so I can pause in this section, normally you aren't able to. And then I did a couple of quick pauses when I activated that remote, which caused us to get knocked out and dragged away. And we're going to get into a sequence with a character called Sheriff Toadster. But I can skip the interrogation sequence by doing a whole bunch of pauses here. I have to, like, mash really hard to get this, so... And it looks like we got it there. I have to mash pretty hard on the pause button to get that, so... Definitely a bit of a focus point there. Also, that's Sheriff Toadster right there. He's a frog who also is a cop. He's kind of our buddy for Banban 4, but we don't know that he's our buddy yet. So he has to interrogate us real quick to make sure that we aren't a threat, basically, given all the monsters we've encountered so far. But don't have to do the interrogation. Because what I essentially did by doing all those pauses is it let me have control during that little sequence where Toadster interrogates us. We can get up and grab the remote and leave the room early. We do have to wait a little bit because we are significantly faster than Sheriff Toadster's walking speed, so we have to wait for him to get over and activate this switch so we can get into the kingdom here through this gate. And yes, it's a kingdom we'll be going into. Why that's in a horror game, I don't know. Like I said, these games just get weirder and weirder. But this kingdom... Yeah, thanks for that, Toadster. But this kingdom is basically a refuge for all the monsters that didn't get corrupted by whatever Gain Volume experiments are going on down here. Banban 4 is unfortunately a little cutscene heavy. Because going earlier with what I said about these games just adding more and more padding, there's a lot of sequences in Banban 4 where you have to talk with Bouncelia. Because the goal of Banban 4 is to try to get back up to the surface, or at least at the moment that's the goal. And to do that, we have to get 3 parts to fix the elevator. And to get each of those parts, you have to do some sort of mini-game or puzzle or stealth sequence.
Your Majesty, I've finished interrogating the new captive.
Yeah, we got to hear some pretty good voice acting here from these two mascots. I mentioned earlier about how Erin Lundquist is in this game. She voices Vancelia.
They don't talk much.
The voice actor for Toadster is pretty good. There's a character named the Jester, or Bitter Giggle as he's actually called. The voice actor for him is pretty good as well.
I'm afraid not.
Although there's a bit of an audio thing with Toadster's dialogue in particular. If you listen very closely, you'll hear some mic static during his lines. It's like super minor, and when you're playing this with an average set of speakers or something, you don't really hear it. But I've noticed that recently in my runs of this game and the quadrilogy, and I've never been able to unsee it. But yeah, I mentioned earlier, or just now, about you have to get those 3 parts to fix the elevator, and that's kind of the main flow of the game. However, there's a skip where basically by doing a pretty difficult trick where we hover up against an invisible wall using that Opila chick that we've seen a few times, we can get out of bounds and hit a checkpoint that puts us at the end of the game in like a final confrontation with Bouncelia.
Missing some crucial parts. 3 to be exact.
And it's the climb to get up the invisible wall and navigate out of bounds afterwards is pretty tight. Well, not tight. There's like a more reliable method to do it now, but even then it's still pretty difficult. And there's a chance that when I go out of bounds and try to hit the checkpoint to get to the end of the game, I could miss the checkpoint somehow and essentially soft lock myself. But like I said, I have backup saves in case that happens, so hopefully it doesn't. So when she says that line, there's an invisible wall that prevents us from going back during the cutscene. But once she says, go get the parts, we can go ahead and leave. And conveniently on our way is the Opila chick. What I'll basically be doing with this Opila chick for this skip is I'll be hovering up an invisible wall that's at the top of these stairs by grabbing and jumping on the Opila chick as a platform. That's a good start. Oh, got a good start to it. Oh, messed it up. So the reason this is so hard is the Opila chick, as you just saw, can pretty easily fall out of your grip. So you have to get a very particular rhythm with it to be able to get up. Otherwise it's a bit of a crapshoot. But we did just get it. And I have to navigate very carefully here, otherwise I fall into an out of bounds abyss scape that I can't get out of. I'm going to very carefully hug this wall, otherwise I can fall out of bounds still. Because even after doing that little hover up the wall, we're still not safe. But we're good here. We can just run along the railing here. Right over there, next on this brick wall, is where the out of bounds checkpoint is. So right around here, just have to fall down. And once I get into the shadows, that's pretty much about where the checkpoint is. So I hit that on the way down, and then I Alt F4 to go back into the game. And we did get it, okay. As for why that checkpoint is there, just sitting there out of bounds, none of us know. It might honestly just be a debug thing that the Euphoric Brothers accidentally left in. But it's very helpful to us, because we can skip a massive portion of the game. For a frame of reference as to how much that actually skips, just to give a time reference, the no major glitches, which is basically this game's skipless speedrun, is around 45 minutes, 44.5 minutes, I think is the world record. But any percent can beat this game in less than 10, and my PB is sub 11, so pretty significant skip there, and it's what has made this game viable for speedruns. Because otherwise, if we were doing no major glitches, we'd have to do a lot more waiting sections, like what you're seeing here. Also, there's the jokester, or the jester, yeah. Bitter Giggle. He has some pretty good voice acting here. There's also this monster right here. He's called the Kittysaurus, which exactly what it sounds like. Mixed between a kitty and a dinosaur. And to give some more context as to what's actually happening here, so while we're getting the 3 gears to try to fix the elevator, this jester, who's basically the big bad of this game, tries to get some basically reject mascots to escape, who are being held in the Queen's pouch over there. Which I know it's a bit much to dump all at once, but that's the lore. And the rule is if Bouncelia laughs, the baddies, the naughty ones as they're called, they escape from her pouch in a beam of light that goes towards the ceiling. And Jester gets the better of us and confronts Sponsalia here.
To make you laugh, even if just for a little bit.
I mentioned earlier about how the voice acting is really good in this game. I mean that seriously. Like, Sponsalia and Jester's voice acting, and Sheriff Toaster's voice acting as well. So good.
Your Majesty, tell me, what did the train conductor say to the kangaroo? Hop on! That was terrible.
This beam of light looks great when it comes out of her pouch. Just like that. Hey. Okay, cool. So we have one final force quit of the run. We force quit there as soon as Toaster goes to his second text box of dialogue. And that teleports us all the way down the stairs. That we don't have to run all that distance. And we have one more small trick after that. Because Toadster in this sequence runs a bit faster than us, the player. So we can do push strats, where we just have him push us along there. Unfortunately, got a little caught on the opening of the bridge, so gonna lose a tiny bit of time because of that, but it's super minor. It doesn't save or lose that much time. It's just a neat little thing to do at the end of the run. And if you're going for a world record, then obviously you have to go for it. And time is when Sheriff Toadster's dialogue appears here. There we go. That's all the Banban games all in a row. Just like that.
If we make it down there alive, we need to find the Queen's scepter. It's the only thing that can stop this madness.
Indeed it is, Toadster. So yeah, that dialogue he had just there, it's a bit of a cliffhanger leading into Banban 6? Banban 5 and 6 are a little weird right now, because it looks like 5 is a prequel, whereas 6 is the actual sequel. I don't know, it's kind of strange how the number ordering of these games work out, but it's alright. So yeah, that was all the Banban games all in a row. I know these games have a bit of a reputation for being bad, but hey, that's why I'm submitting this to Awful Block. I think these games have some pretty cool tricks in them, some pretty funny moments like with the car ride, and the sequence of Bonsalia at the end of Banban 4 there, just to give a couple of examples. And I think it would just be really cool to run in general for GDQ. Run Mascot Horror in the past with Poppy Playtime at AGDQ last year, and I'd like to represent that side of the horror space again. But yeah, that's my submission for the Banban series, all four, for AGDQ 2024. And that's the end of the run. Thank you for considering my run, and let's hopefully see this in January.